And now, tell me again how you kind of made your way over to the Kress Estate
Well,
where you
what
first
it was
lived.
is, my father-in-law worked for Kress as a caretaker of the estate when they were building it up.
When they're building, okay, and
Right.
when was that?
That would have been
Approximately?
about 19, I think about 1915, 16, somewhere in that
Okay,
category.
yes.
And Kress
What was his name? Give us his name.
Albert Slater.
Albert Slater. Okay.
Right.
S-L-A.
S-L-E-A-T-O-R.
Okay. S-L-E-A-T-O-R.
O-R. And he
Okay.
had 4 children
Mhm.
born on the estate. Albert, Ann, Bobby, who was killed in the service,
Okay.
and George. They were born right on the estate.
Okay.
And then there was a family named Osborne living on the estate when we were there.
Okay.
He
You
was
remember
the plumber.
Any first names, Osborne?
I can't remember it,
Okay, that's all right.
but he was a plumber, and he took care of all the plumbing on the estate. And he had a gardener named Albert that was in charge of all the gardens and all.
Okay.
And Albert Pereira, I think it was, and he went back to Portugal.
Yes, okay. Some of the photos I showed Andre were Karma Pereira, who was his daughter.
That's right, yes, I remember. I think she
Yes.
married a South American fella, if I'm not mistaken. And she moved to South America, and then she came back up or something.
Okay. And now you had a house
Yeah, we
on the
were
property?
in the house at the second gate.
Okay, as you say, you come into the gate. Was it on the right
Not the
or on the
first,
left?
not by the lake now. You came in the second gate up further.
In other words, Spring Valley Road.
Right,
Yes.
well, yes, we call it Cedar Lane, but yes. And it was, the swimming pool was there.
Okay.
And then our house was right in front of the swimming pool.
Okay.
And that had 14 rooms in it, that house,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so that's not, is that the house that's still there? The
Yeah.
carriage? I
I
call
think
it
they
a
use it-
carriage house. Or,
I don't know whose it is, it's on St. Mary's property now.
Okay.
And as far as my family, this is something I didn't tell you either. Up behind Lake Cottage, you know which one that is?
Yes,
by the way?
Lakeview Cottage. We
Lakeview?
now call it Reuben House.
Oh, Reuben
It's
House,
what the
that's
town
right.
of Ossining calls
Yeah.
it now, yes.
Well, up behind that, there's a big enormous rock. And if you look
Mhm.
at it, all the family initials are carved into the rock where the kids chipped their names into them, going back to 18 something.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
I'll look for it next
Yeah,
time I'm there.
it's a
Yeah.
big rock behind, just up behind where the, I'm trying to think now,
There's a ball field.
greenhouses were there.
The greenhouse?
Yes.
Oh, there was a second set. Was it a second set of
Yeah,
greenhouses?
there was 2 sets of greenhouses.
Yes, okay,
Yeah, and-
good.
As you go up on the other side, there was the barn with the garage, and they used to store furniture in there and all.
Mhm.
And the gardens and the lake. And the lake house was up at the end at one time, not where it is today.
You mean, you're talking about Lakeview Cottage?
No, they had a lake, actual lake house, where they kept the boats in for the lake, right across from the ice house.
Oh, okay, yeah, one of the photos, it's a
Yeah.
boat, right, where they keep the paddle boats,
Yeah.
right?
But
Okay.
that's the ice house, and they used to cut all their meat. In fact, I'd like to tell you how many deer I've cut up and
yeah?
wrapped and all, and
Wow.
pigs and beef.
Yes, because in those days, people wanted to be self-sufficient,
Oh, they were.
and they had
Yeah.
all the food.
The only thing that the people on the estate had to buy was bread. They got their milk and they got their vegetables, and potatoes were all stored for the winter and all that stuff. Bread really was, and their telephone, they had to pay their own telephone.
Mhm.
Otherwise, they didn't have to pay rent or anything on
Wonderful,
there.
right,
No, it was
right.
very good.
Yes.
And Mr. Kress was a wonderful man. Now, Rush Kress, I don't know too much about Samuel, but Rush Kress, he used to buy a new station wagon for his superintendent on the estate each year. So he
Okay.
always had a nice car and all. And we were always allowed to use it,
Uh-huh,
you know, to go down to the beach or something like that, or take it for the weekend or something.
right.
He was really nice.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
he used to send a big box up, a Scott tissue box, I remember. It was that big and that wide, that high, with toys for the children every Christmas
Oh, wonderful.
from the store.
Yes, yes.
So, and as I said, my great-grandmother lived up there, and she
Yes.
sold her property to Kress.
Oh, okay, now what was her name?
Her name was Smith.
Ah, okay.
Smith, and her mother's name was Fowler, and her mother's name was Fisher. They were all
Okay,
related there.
Yes, now you remember the first name, just out of curiosity, of your grandmother?
Sarah, Shoutin' Sarah, they used to call her. This is my great-grandmother now.
Your great-grandmother,
Yeah,
yes.
Shoutin' Sarah, they called her, because she couldn't write or read, really, but she could tell you the whole Bible from one end to the other. They used to call her Shoutin' Sarah. I know of one of his grandsons named, they called him Buddy.
Buddy?
Yeah, and and I say, Buddy married Henry Fonda's daughter. And
Oh,
then they
no
were
kidding.
divorced after a
What
while.
was that? Now, you remember Henry Fonda's daughter's name that he married? Do you remember?
I don't know offhand, but he married one of the daughters.
Okay.
And then Henry Fonda's son used to come up to the estate. And
Peter
play-
Fonda.
Peter, and he got shot, he shot himself up there.
Yes.
And they used to say that it was because he was so sad about his mother. It wasn't that at all. He and Bunny Kress got into the gun, they broke the cabinet and they got into the guns.
Oh, they
And
broke
They
it.
broke the cabinet and got into the guns, and there was
Okay.
a lot to do about that.
I have a newspaper article that I discovered because on the internet now,
Yeah,
there are what they call archives.
yes.
They're
yes.
not like readily available. You can't just
No,
click
no,
clicks
you
and find them.
can't.
But you have to order them.
Yeah.
You can find like some notes about it,
Mhm.
and then you pay a fee, and then you can download. I think it's
Download.
20 at a time, something like. So I have a newspaper
Yeah.
article on the whole incident.
Yeah, that's right. That was about I'm trying to think. That was just after the war, I think. It must have been about 1950 or so.
Somewhere around
How
there.
old
Yeah.
was Bunny?
I think he's probably in his 60s.
In his 60s? But
Maybe
because
late
he was only,
50s.
15 to 16. He was 16 when this incident happened with Henry Fonda's son.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So.
But I remember all these things just because we lived there for so long, you know? Sure.
Uh-huh.
And because when the Lindbergh baby was stolen, they had to lock the gates up there because everybody was reporting that my husband was the Lindbergh child. And so they were going up there and they kept coming in, so Chris ordered the gates locked at all times.
Oh my goodness. They thought it was your child?
They thought my husband was the Lindbergh child. Yeah, he had the
My
blonde
goodness.
curly.
He looked like, oh.
Yeah, the curly hair, and he was the same age, and the detectives
Wow.
and everything came up to the estate 2 or 3 times.
Uh-huh.
Looking
My
at him.
goodness. Yeah, there'll be a photo.
That you may know.
Yes.
All those paintings ended up in the barn up at the estate.
All of them?
All of them were up there for a while before they donated them to
Okay,
Washington.
okay, do me a quick favor. Hold on, let me have you say that again. Because we're over to the side now and it's not really, all right, now say that again now, the paint.
All those paintings were up in the barn, and that barn was completely changed upstairs. There was special equipment in there. He bought an artist in from Italy to redo them.
Okay,
And this artist lived up in the barn, and I remember that at a certain hour when this painting was made or something,
okay.
their bell would ring and piece of art would come down, and he may only work on it 10 minutes or so, and the light would change.
Oh, because in the old days, they
That's
used to
right.
have a certain light
That's right.
when they would paint
And,
their subjects in the Renaissance
Right.
days.
And
So-
so when that light, it may only be down for 5 minutes, then the bell would ring and he'd have to stop and to go back up into the
You mean it was some kind of mechanical device that
mechanical
pull it up?
things. That when the sun was just right, or if the moon was just right,
Yes.
the painting would come down.
Oh my good. So they probably did a considerable amount of research.
That's
I know
right.
there were a lot of experts who were hired and brought in from all over the world to
Believe
give their
me.
professional opinions
When
about
that
these
alarm
paintings.
went off, even if a bird touched the barn, that alarm went off.
A
And-
security alarm.
You're right.
Security,
And
yes, yes.
I mean, you could be sitting there, everybody and the family could be sitting there, and all of a sudden their lights would start going, and they couldn't even get up, it was so loud. It was just such a shock to hear it, like, your lights would start going and you weren't even up yet. And they'd run up there right away to make sure no one broke into the place.
Yes,
But
yes.
even a bird hitting the building or something would set off the alarms there.
Because it was so sensitive.
Yeah. Oh, they were beautiful paintings they had there. Now.
Yes.
I had a copy of one.
Magazine article.
This is up in the barn, I think, isn't it? No, it's
You know
in
what?
Pennsylvania.
According to this, they say it's at Blueberry Hill.
It might be.
I'm sorry, Huckleberry Hill.
It might be in
See, because they say
Huckleberry.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but also they had all this.
They had
stuff on
something
the
like that,
barn.
okay, in the barn too?
I'll go down and tell the
See him
guy to
looking
call
up
your
like-
wife.
Yes.
That's where a lot of these were stored, and a bell would ring, and they would come down here, and the artist would work on
Well,
it.
you know what you just made me think? Maybe, because they tried to always say this was a secret location in Pennsylvania. Maybe it was in the barn,
Skies on, that's where the skies are.
and they just didn't want people to
It
know.
might be, because that was, I mean,
Does that look familiar, the
Even-
floor, the
yes, it
floors?
does, that's upstairs in the barn.
Ah,
That's
detective
where it
work.
was. It had this beautiful wood.
cool is
Okay,
Yeah.
see?
This was all fixed, and the paintings were up there, see how they're looking?
Yes, I've
A
seen
painting
it.
was coming
See,
down.
see, they see, there's
Now,
coming
he
down.
worked- They'd worked on that for
Oh,
just,
my
maybe
goodness.
only 10 minutes, because the light was just right. The painting, he lived there.
Right.
And I remember the painting, a bell would ring, and a painting could come out down 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 12 o'clock, maybe it wouldn't come down for 2 months. And then at 11:35, it'd come down, and he had to be there to touch these things up.
Guys, somebody has to be like an astronomer
That's
to
fast.
figure out where the sun's gonna be, you know.
Exactly
I'm an
right.
amateur astronomer.
Sure.
And you have to know.
You
So
have to
see,
know.
now they say this is, I
don't
assumed,
This might be.
this is probably in Pennsylvania,
It could be,
in
because I don't
Huckleberry Hill.
recognize this.
There was another studio in the city. Because see, they say here, they live in roomy quarters above the studio during the week, commute to homes in New York on weekends.
Yeah.
So that's probably Pennsylvania,
It probably could be.
where they're touching up the art.
Could be.
And on one of the DVDs I'm gonna give you.
Yeah, they didn't, Bobby, wanted to know if he could go up there, and they loved having the deer walking through in
Oh,
the
yeah.
yard. and
Right,
all like that.
undisturbed, and
Yeah.
This Stillman?
Yeah, still on, still on.
Oh,
You know, let me ask you about the shoot back. Remember we were talking about Fondas, the Peter Fonda,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and the
Yeah, yeah, the Kress.
Do you know where the shooting range was?
There wasn't a shooting range on the property. But
There wasn't. Oh,
no,
okay,
but
okay.
Kress had all these guns in a cabinet, and
Okay.
Bunny Avery and one of the Fonda, Peter Fonda's son.
Wait, you said Buddy Avery?
Well,
A-B-R-Y.
that was the grandson.
Okay,
Buddy
yeah,
Avery.
right.
They went,
That's a different Buddy than the.
they went to that famous rich school in Connecticut, I think it was, where
Okay.
all the rich kids went to. Yeah,
Choate?
No, it wasn't Choate, it was, began with a D, I think. They all went to that school.
Okay,
And they came down to the estate,
I see.
and they asked Mr. Slater for the keys to the house.
Okay.
Well, it's his grandson, you know, you don't say no to people like that. So
Right.
Mr. Slater gave the keys to him,
Okay.
and they went over to Lakeview Cottage.
Lakeview Cottage,
And they
okay.
broke the cabinet where
Oh,
the
is it in the
guns were.
basement, the bottom ground floor? Where
Yeah.
those in the wall cabinets are located? Oh,
And
okay.
they broke the
I'll show you.
cabinet.
You can see
and
through the
they-
glass.
Yeah.
You can see them through the glass.
And Mr. Slater wasn't mad at him for breaking the cabinet and getting the guns and going out shooting. He was upset about him getting shot and all. But he
Yeah.
was upset because they went in the ice house and they had all the meat cut and in the freezer, and they left the freezer wide open, and they took out a piece of meat and was gonna cook it in the house. That's why I remember. That's what he was mad about, because
Oh,
all the
okay.
meat in the freezer have. But
Okay.
anyhow, they went up over by the apple orchard, they started shooting with the guns, and they
Where was the
claimed,
apple orchard?
when you come out of the when you come in the second gate where the lake is.
Okay, where the
You come
lake
up,
is.
and there used to be a road that went way up like that and back up, and that was where the apple orchard.
Oh, it was like a little elevated? Was it
Yes,
a little elevated
yes,
area?
it was up in
Okay.
there, and that was
Okay.
the apple orchard.
Okay, yes.
And they were up in there shooting and things, and somehow he shot himself, and
Yeah,
then they came running for Mr. Slater, and he
right,
called an ambulance, and they took him down to
right.
the Ossining Hospital.
The Ossining Hospital, yes.
Yeah.
Because the article I have says that there was a guy, Dr. Charles Sweet.
Yeah, Dr.
remember him.
Sweet.
I remember him.
We all remember him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
He
And,
delivered a lot of babies, right?
and Henry Fonda stayed in the Ossining Hotel down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that the Wisconsin Hotel? Or?
No, not that old. This was right on Main Street, right along there.
Where the
the
pizza
Os-
parlor is now. It's like kind of a fancy building in the
Yes.
corner.
Yeah.
There's a landmark. There's a little blue.
That's right.
The
Yeah,
yellow
there was a
landmark.
hotel at
Oh, by the way, speaking of history, I saw a play exactly like that, the same facade. That might be
Because we got Peter Falk Place,
Yeah.
but you know,
Peter Falk and I graduated from high school.
is that right?
And he used to be in this house all the time with his
Really?
brother
Peter
Jim.
Falk is?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Who was he? Was he friends with you or with
My
your
brother Jim.
With your brother
Yeah, we
Jim?
used to go golfing and everything. In fact, Peter married a girl originally named Alice. I remember this.
Alice?
It's not who he's married to in Hollywood, but he
Okay.
married a girl named Alice. And Peter and my brother Jim were going golfing. They came up and they dumped Alice in the living room here with me. I never met her. And then they went off to play
they
golf.
had their priorities.
I was stuck with Peter's,
First wife.
well, she was his girlfriend at
Okay.
the time, and her name
Oh,
was
okay.
Alice. I always
Yeah.
remember that.
Now,
Yeah,
when
Peter
you,
and Jim used
when
to.
you were up to Kress Estate, did you meet the famous people or no?
She said. She said, I know what it's like to be dead. I know what it is to be sad. And she's making me feel like I've never been born.